Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode whatever number we are on of the Electric B2B show. And this is a really special episode because I have with me two people who I think I'm fortunate to be able to call my friends. They are certainly people who I have learned a great deal from in marketing and B2B marketing and account-based marketing. They're sort of my heroes in a way. They're guys who are extremely experienced. They have a lot of knowledge in the space. So welcome to the set, Mr. Vladimir Blagojevic and Andrei Zinkevich.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Happy to be here. We were watching your podcast and it's really great to be here as well.
So I know that you guys have been on a bunch of podcasts and webinars and whatnot because you're being invited quite often. But let me just start with this question. Andrei, I am directing this question towards you. What are the major similarities between football and account-based marketing? And I'm hoping this is something that you're not ready for. I'm hoping to catch you off guard with this question, but it's going to lead into what we're talking about a bit later.
Yeah, absolutely. But there is one direct correlation or similarity, as you called it. So in football and in account-based marketing, you have a team. And you can sign up contracts with superstars like Cristiano Ronaldo, like Lionel Messi, but you have seen it multiple times. But Barcelona didn't win the Champions League for a long time. The same happened to Juventus despite of signing Cristiano Ronaldo, because the truth is that teams are winning the games and the teams are always winning in a long term. The same in account-based marketing. You have marketing, you have business development, sales in general, and you have client success. And in football, this team, like your entire team, they have also different roles. You have forwards, you have midfielders, you have defenders and goalkeeper. Now is the question, which role is the most important? And the obvious answer is that they have equal, let's say, role. They are really equal. And the same should be in account-based marketing. Marketing, sales, client success should be aligned to win in a long term. So this is the key similarity.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so next question is for you, Vlad. Before we introduce you guys deeper, let's say, because you have tremendous amount of experience, you work with a bunch of companies for, 10 plus years in B2B. Let's say you had to boil down everything and all that you know into one piece of advice for marketing. What would this be?
I think definitely it would be get to know your customers. A lot of companies, a lot of marketers, they believe they know their customers much better than they actually do. And that's a root cause of a lot of failed marketing campaigns. I think this would be, if I had to choose one, this would be the one.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad you said that. And I was kind of speculating that you would say that, Vlad. Okay. All right. So just for those of our listeners and watchers who don't know you, can you guys introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So we both are co-founders of a company called fullfunnel.io. And we are in trenches, we love to call it. We also co-founded a community called Trenches for B2B marketers that are getting their hands dirty in B2B marketing every day. This is our motto. This is what we are doing for the last 15 years. And basically, we help B2B companies to land sales qualified opportunities with strategic accounts with a mix of account-based marketing and demand generation operations.
Right. I thought you were going to say some separate things, but yeah, that's your company. But before you guys joined each other, which was how many years ago was it?
We really started 1 year ago, officially working together. We know each other from, I think, 2017, 2018, when Andrei started with his activity more internationally. he started a B2B marketers and founders community on Facebook, and I was one of the first members. And we chatted a lot. We had some face-to-face calls. We saw each other in Valencia back in 2018, but we officially started working under the fullfunnel.io brand last year. So it's a bit more than just 1 year.
Awesome. Okay. So what were you guys doing before that, Vlad?
I was a long time ago. I was a computer programmer. I was actually a software engineer and always worked with software companies, always in B2B, long and complex sales cycles. And then 15 years ago, I started actually working in a role where I had to sell, and I started to sell and market B2B and tech services and products. So 15 years ago, been first doing that as an employee, and then started on my own. Back in 2011, I started a startup that failed, but kind of stuck with the marketing part of it, and been doing B2B marketing consulting since then.
Awesome. So Andrei, what were you doing besides playing football?
That should be interesting for your listeners if they are curious. What are the root reasons for asking a question about the similarity between ABM and football? Yes, I was playing football for years, and unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, who knows, because of several injuries, I started working first of all as a sales rep, and for the first 5 years, I was building my career in sales, working for major world-known corporations as Kimberly-Clark and Biosphere Corporation. So I spent in total 8 years in enterprise world. And quite often, something that might be interesting for you and for your listeners, quite often I get a question, how did I learn ABM? And I told, what? When your market is limited to 50 accounts in total, you have no chances not to learn ABM the hard way.
You can't not do ABM.
Yeah, exactly. So after 8 years I spent in enterprise world, I started my own equity, my own venture, which is now another company I'm running remotely called Advice, this boutique inbound marketing agency. But at the beginning, it was the same, like Vlad mentioned. It was one-man show. I was working as a remote B2B marketing consultant, or nowadays, there is a more fancy term for this, a fractional CMO.
Awesome. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to look at the transition to account-based marketing. And we're going to be looking at 3 scenarios with these 2 gentlemen. One is going to be when you are just starting out with marketing in your company. So we have a lot of tech companies who are already successful at selling their services, but they just realize that they need some marketing, which has the advantage of having a clean slate. So you can start things off just right. Okay. The second scenario we're going to be looking at is when you already have a small team. So you have a technology company, either products or services, and you already got like 2 to 5 people on your team. And the third scenario is going to be mature marketing organizations. So when you already have a lot of things going on in marketing now, and this is the similarity with football, right? So the 3 scenarios we're going to be looking at is going to be based on marketing team size or marketing maturity, to put it another way, right? So in the first instance, when you just imagine a couple of clients of yours that you've had who are, fairly developed organizations, meaning they have product market fit, they're profitable, and they're looking to build out marketing. They might not even be aware of account-based marketing. They might just have like 1 assistant or 1 intern doing marketing, or what's often the case, salespeople doing marketing. What is your advice for them? So what are the first steps?
In terms of transition?
Yeah, like, so when you have almost no marketing, and we assume that you're supposed to be doing account-based marketing, or it's advisable to be doing account-based marketing, and you want to get started and step on the right path. So what are some of the first steps?
I believe we can add several insights here from different perspectives. But I would say that, first of all, you need to understand that ABM is not a silver bullet. Lots of people are presenting ABM as a unique solution or approach, etc. But to be honest, account-based marketing is just a part of marketing operations. So it's not a sole, just standalone strategy, but it's a part of normal marketing operations, which means that you should have a clear go-to-market strategy. You should know what are the most profitable market segments, who is your ICP for these specific verticals. Now we're talking about the ABM. It includes the account qualification and account segmentation criteria. It includes your offer, your messaging. So your messaging should be aligned with these specific verticals. These are the fundamentals that should be done before launching any campaign, not specific ABM campaign, but any campaign in general. So these are critical things. And something that Vlad has already mentioned, you should be regularly talking to your customers. So to understand, to learn, how to position your product the right way to this specific ICP, to this specific accounts, you need to interview your customers. You need to get these insights from them. You need to understand what motivates them to buy. And the most important part is, how do they buy products like yours? So how their typical research looks like. Where do they go when they want to, to find a specific vendor or tool or solution, whatever? Where do they ask these questions? With whom do they advise? What influences their decision-making process? If they have, let's say, if you are selling high-ticket product, if you are selling to enterprise companies, you'll definitely be dealing with in-house discussions. So the question is, who is participating in these in-house discussions? What influences their decision-making process? What questions are being asked, are being discussed? What kind of information is required to make this decision? So these are the most important things. And if you'll take, let's say, if you'll overview this from, let's say, a bird view, you'll see that this is a buying process of your ICP, and your sales process and marketing process as well should be developed by leveraging these insights. It should be developed on this information. These are the most important things, and it doesn't, the maturity of the company doesn't mean at all. This is something that should be done for product market fit companies or for the mature companies. It's a fundamental thing that is the most important.
Okay, and Vlad, in your experience, where do companies usually go wrong in this process? So where is first? Yeah.
So if you're talking about companies who are just starting, like you mentioned, with marketing, I think often the steps that Andrei just mentioned, they skip over them. They skip over the strategy and they want to go immediately into, things like creative outreach or running some display ads or some targeted ads. And when they do that, obviously they're not going to get the good results back from that. Another mistake that we see very often is that they give to the marketing a wish list of target accounts. And I'm talking about let's close Amazon, Facebook. Okay, maybe exaggerated, but companies that you would definitely it would be so awesome to have them on the list. Or maybe companies who you failed to close in the past, or otherwise, actually, what you want to do is you want to stack the odds in your favor. And how do you stack the odds in your favor? Well, by looking at which are your current best customers, which are your segments when you have the most success, when it's easiest to sell, where the deals are the biggest, where the product market fit or the fit with these accounts is the best, where you have the best case studies, etc. Right?
This goes right back, sorry, Vlad, to the first question we discussed, which is the number one most important thing in marketing, and it's knowing your customers. Because once you have a real clear understanding of your customer, and that includes your solution customer fit or product market fit, like which segment your product can do the best job in, then a lot of these steps are going to be like ticked off, because you just have that. So a lot of these steps that Andrei has mentioned, they really build on a deep and intimate knowledge of your customer and her buying process.
Yeah. So, and that rolls out all the way into that list that you're going to building, because at the end, an ABM campaign is going to work on named accounts. You're going to go after, a list of, sometimes people call this like the dream account list, or, the best fit account list, whatever you like to call it. But these are the insights that you want to use to be able to build that list as well. And other than skipping the strategy or, not nailing the target criteria, right, not nailing the list right, I think what a lot of companies where they fail is lack of sales and marketing alignment. And Andrei mentioned this at the beginning, ABM is a team sport, definitely. If you just do the marketing part and you warm up your accounts, you're going to leave a lot of money on the table, because you're not going to activate them, you're not going to turn them into opportunities. Or vice versa, if you just go out with your sales team, and doing some sort of an outreach and, trying to create opportunity right away, you're going to also miss out on a lot of opportunities, because your accounts won't know, like, and trust you, and will be much less likely to basically, engage with you and start the conversations that you need to have. Another mistake that we see that companies make is deciding too quickly about what's working and what's not working, right? The problem is, especially if you look at companies with long sales cycles, let's say, a lot of companies that we work with might have a sales cycle anywhere between 6 months to 18 months, even sometimes a few years. And so you can't really be able to say after a month or two of campaigns, okay, nobody's closing, we are not generating sales, so it's time to shut down the program.
How long? You said a month or two. Is that exact? So should you be expecting results in a month or two?
Well, if you're talking about the sales results, and you have a sales cycle of 18 months,
then obviously not.
No.
But qualified leads, let's say.
Well, that is another. So because of that, what you need to be looking at is some leading indicators. And I think the leading indicators that they can be looking at the very beginning is, for example, how many of those accounts did we engage and activate? I would just exactly same situations that we are now discussing. So a team that did a bit of marketing, I wouldn't say they really did some marketing, but they did a bit of marketing, updated their website and, wrote some articles basically. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to start with ABM. And they actually started with a pilot campaign of 30 accounts. And what was really amazing, in my opinion, is that they managed to activate 12 of those accounts. What was the activation in that case? Those were some conversations. So basically, they run a market research play where they engage the buyers in interviews, and they actually, during those conversations that they have with those 12 accounts, they could clearly identify, okay, 3 of those accounts, they're definitely not a good fit. So we made a mistake while we were building our list. They were not a good fit. There is definitely no need. The 9 of the 12 accounts that they spoke to, there was a potential need. There was not yet a sales opportunity, there was a potential need, right? And what's interesting as well is that 6 out of those 9 accounts agreed to do, so they were activated. So they agreed to do follow-up calls, which was more discovery. They, with other buyers defining, the pilot cases and things like that. So these are real examples of real results that quite a complex sale involving teams sometimes. It's really a very specific product that requires buyers both from the product and marketing and management, really like different people from customer support to all come around the table and make a decision. And still, I think the results that I'm talking about, they started seeing these results already after 2 to 3 months before the situation was like I explained.
Okay, Andrei, relating to what Vlad just said, you've consulted a bunch of similar founders before. What do you find, like, what's the hardest point to get across? In other words, what is it in their thinking that is, for them, hard to get their minds around?
I would differentiate, or I would create 2 buckets of these companies. So the first one is the company where you need to change the mindset. And that's completely different from the companies where founders, or let's say a company in general, learn the lesson the hard way and they're eager to change the things. So these are completely different situations. When it comes to the first group, again, as I said, we're always kidding with Vlad about this. They must learn the lesson the hard way. So quite often companies say, wait, hold on, ABM, 3 months campaign. I just spoke to one lead generation agency and they promised to generate me 30 leads at this price. I mean, this cost of acquisition, this is our target cost of acquisition, and my calendar will be full of appointments. And if you'll open LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, you'll always see this post from these lead generation agencies. Look, so I created a super fancy outbound cadence, and now a screenshot from the calendar, my calendar is full of the meetings. But the truth is, this is what we always say at Full Funnel. You don't need more leads. You need sales qualified opportunities. And this is completely different. More meetings in your calendar doesn't mean more sales qualified opportunities, because you
buy you bread.
Yeah, to low quality leads. So that's the first part. These companies need the lesson the hard way. So when it comes to the second one, let's be honest. The majority of founders don't have marketing background, and they shouldn't have it. So they want, what do they want is to grow their businesses. That's the key point. And they're coming to you, to agency, to consultant company for a solution. So in our case, our goal, and this is the, let's say, probably the key differentiation between us and the agencies. So we are working with in-house teams. We help in-house teams to build the process, something that they can leverage after working with us, and it becomes a part of their marketing and sales operations. And the key point here is to show the entire, first of all, show the big picture, how it works, how they can scale it, because the question about scalability always will be on your agenda list. And the next step is showing the step-by-step playbook with the dashboard and with the leading indicators, something what Vladimir already mentioned. Because the truth is, you won't be able, there are no magic ones, there are no silver bullets, you won't be able to drastically shorten the sales cycle. And especially when you're launching ABM programs, again, here's a brutal truth. So the majority of companies will measure the success of your pilot ABM campaign by amount of sales qualified leads, sales qualified opportunities, not by increase in average contract value, they won't see success in shortening the sales cycle length or having a higher deal close rate. Never. They will evaluate it. They will measure the success by the number of sales qualified opportunities. So you need.
What if, please, Andrei, let me interrupt. I have a question. So let's say you run into a company where obviously they already have some either sales or even marketing activity going on. So they have prospects in the pipeline. Would you advise doing a campaign for prospects already in the pipeline, or do you usually go after cold? And
Absolutely, because you'll have higher, let's say, your success rate will be much higher if you somehow engaged with these accounts in the past. So we used to call it deal acceleration,
deal acceleration. Okay, so what would be your leading indicator in that case? Instead of qualified opportunities, what are you looking at?
Yeah, exactly. So there are several leading indicators we are looking at. So the first one is account penetration. It's basically what we mean by this is with how many people from the buying committee you are able to connect. By connection, I don't mean connection status on LinkedIn, that you send connection request and that's it, you have done your job. But basically with how many people did you have an engagement? It could be a chat, it could be a call, it could be, some kind of content collaboration, whatever. It could be, the chat, you can invite them to your event and then talk after it, whatever. But you have had a chance to talk to these people. So this is what I mean by account penetration. Next one is account engagement. These are, again, this is very related to the previous point. So with how many interactions did you have? So the number of chats, the number of, let's say, events they did sign up, the number of, I don't know, pieces of content they requested from you or read from you. We can dive deeply into this later. So these are the leading indicators. And finally, again, bottom of the final So did they ask, let's say, a case study? Did they ask testimonials or reviews or whatever? Did they check, again, nowadays we can track it. Did they check your product page, pricing page, whatever? Again, did they check customer stories? So these are, let's say, bottom of the funnel signals or account engagement. So these are the most important leading indicators that demonstrate that the deal, the opportunity is moving forward, correct? So this is how we can evaluate that there is an opportunity to close it in the future. So that's
awesome. Okay, Vlad, get ready now because we are moving to the second cohort of companies. So now we want to look at the companies who already have somewhat of a marketing team, meaning like 2 to 5 people. They've already fiddled with Google Ads, for example. They've already, run trade shows. So they got their feet wet in marketing. And when you propose to them that, hey, maybe we should audit your marketing, they're not going to reject you on the basis of, hey, there's nothing to audit, like in the first segment of companies we just talked about. So they already have some marketing activities that could be audited. It's probably not a structured ABM thing. So how do you work on transitioning these companies on the trail?
Yeah, so you mentioned the marketing audit, and I think that is usually the first step is to understand where the current bottlenecks are in the marketing and sales funnel. Because the problem is if you just start focusing on lead generation, whether you're using ABM or anything else, and you have bottlenecks, friction points, or otherwise, leaks in the funnel, it's like pouring water in a leaky bucket, right? So you can pour more water, but a lot of water, you will also, it will dissipate, you will lose it. So the first point is to understand, so what are the current bottlenecks? And going back to the initial discussion, do they understand their customers? Did they run interviews with their customers? How do they do market segmentation? How do they target their campaigns, et cetera, et cetera? How is their messaging? How is their positioning? Is it right? Is it correct?
Okay, let me stop you there. When you look at, what's your general impression when you look at these companies and you look at these things, ICP, messaging, positioning, everything? Can you generalize? Like, what do you usually find?
Well, the reason why we often talk about, targeting, positioning, etc., is because it's often broken. So let's just be honest. A lot of companies obviously, like the more mature companies, the better they will understand that, etc. Like you're talking about the third type of companies, the third type of situation, it's going to be better. But let's say in the middle, when they have a few marketers, they ran some marketing campaigns, etc. The main reason why often these campaigns are not working is because of these fundamentals that they got wrong.
Yeah.
In addition to running MQL playbooks, which we definitely don't work, especially not for companies with high ACV and complex sales.
Yes. Okay. And Andrei, when you audit a company, how can you tell that the messaging, for example, is wrong? Because you know the ICP, and then you look at their website and their marketing collateral. What are some of the signs you're looking for to determine whether the messaging works or doesn't?
The answer is really simple, but not that obvious. I asked just one question. Have you validated this messaging with your customers, with your ICP? And in 99% of cases, I hear no. And if it's not validated with your ICP, look, I'm an external consultant. I don't have a niche expertise. I don't have niche background. I can't say for sure if it's a good messaging or no. Only their ICPs can, or only their best customers can prove it. And if they have never validated it with their best customers, the chances that it's not really good, it's just a hypothesis.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So,
okay. So Vlad, how do you go about validation? What are some of the steps to that?
So, one of the things also, if you look at the messaging and the positioning, especially like on the homepage and where they really on their LinkedIn profiles or wherever they're presenting themselves, often, you'll be seeing like quite generic messages that, are clearly not communicating how you're better and why you're worth buying and how you're different from everybody else in the market. So there are some things that are indeed, like Andrei said, the ultimate proof is the customers, but I think it's also obvious when you haven't communicated the most important parts of your messages, and that is like how are you valuable and how you're different and why you're worth buying for that specific type of customers that you're after. And then, how do you go about auditing further is like basically looking at the different campaigns that they ran. What were the KPIs? Were they focusing, for example, we mentioned the MQL. Are these like campaigns that are just driving the MQLs? And, you already hear it in the discovery call. They say, my biggest challenge is not leads. My biggest challenge is turning those leads into opportunities, without realizing that actually the focus on those leads is where the problem is. And, you're basically reviewing everything that they have, including even, how the marketing supports sales, from the first sales conversation all throughout the deal closing. And where are the friction points between marketing and sales? Where are the friction points for the buyers in the funnel, etc.
Right. Okay. And Andrei, does any surprising finding come to mind from these marketing audits? So when you think back on all of the marketing audits that you've done, like what is something where your jaw really dropped that's worth talking about here?
I would formulate
positive examples can come too.
Yeah, I would formulate it slightly different. So basically, we see the patterns, and we see that at any given market, at any given B2B market, let's make it more precise. Again, the majority of companies are playing the guesswork. So they don't have a clear go-to-market strategy. They don't know their ICP. They never validate their messaging and positioning with their customers. And in a majority of cases, which is really interesting, companies want to play safe and boring marketing. So what they are doing is just, whenever you ask, why did you launch this campaign? They say, because our competitors are doing this. You ask, why you are posting? Let me share with you a precise example. With one, there was one customer, software development company. And, as a part of their audit, they asked to review their content. And I'm opening their blog, and the first article is, why should you create a mobile app in 2021? And I'm asking, who is a target audience? CTO of North American startups. Again, you see multiple mistakes just out from this formulation. But the first question is, do you guys really think that a modern CTO doesn't know why he or she should have a mobile app in 2021, and they will read your blog, and this is something that can create demand for your services. That's crazy. So what they're doing is they just try to play safe and boring marketing. They try to do what their competitors are doing, because they tend to think, if my competitors are not doing this, probably it doesn't work. Which means completely opposite. You should be doing what your competitors are not doing. Another story is that when you do the same things, when you're operating as a commodity product vendor, doesn't matter. Nobody can blame you, because nobody cares about you. That's the truth. So that's another problem that we are seeing quite often. So there are lots of patterns, there are lots of similarities, and these are the key insights. But the good news are that they can be easily solved, because again, the more traditional is the market, manufacturing, whatever. We are not talking about MarTech, sales tech, where we have lots of advanced companies, but the more conservative, the more traditional is the market, the faster you can get the results, because you change the game, you change everything. And because nobody, even if you'll be doing this, companies will tend to think, okay, they're doing some stupid things, it makes no sense. And they will never follow your path. And this creates multiple opportunities for you to grow revenue faster.
Yeah. Vlad, does anything stick out for you from these marketing audits of...
Well, you asked for an example, and I found an example that I wasn't surprised by it, and it's kind of a pattern as well, but I just found it very interesting to put out the numbers so that people realize what we're talking about. So, for example, I did an audit of a company who had quite well nailed their, target segment. They really knew who their best customers were. They did a bunch of interviews. They updated their positioning. That was clear. So these fundamental things were in place. And then they decided to run lead generation ads on LinkedIn. And they were doing that for about 6 months, I believe, five or 6 months. They spent around 30K on those ads. They drove more than 1,300 leads in there. And so the way that they presented this to me, and the way why they even invited us, was, look, we figured out how to generate leads. We just don't know how to generate opportunities out of those leads. So they look at that in sequence. And so when I looked at that campaign, basically out of all the 1,300, they had, let me check, they had basically 2 opportunities and no sales. And out of those 2 opportunities, one was clearly not really an opportunity, because they had like 1 meeting and then the guy stopped being responsive. And so the other one was still like some discussion going on. And by the way, if you looked at how the opportunities was created, I'm not sure if you can attribute it to LinkedIn ads, because there was somebody else who before that joined the webinar. And of course, trying to attribute a sale to a LinkedIn ad is, I always say, is like saying, hey, I gained a lot of weight from that burger I ate, on set.
Yeah. Okay. And yes, so that was surprising, because you uncovered something that is, okay, so in this case, what was wrong? Was it the lead generation? Did they get all the wrong leads?
No, they got
the process really broken.
They got a lot of relevant companies. Let me see if I see. Yeah, so definitely like what they called marketing qualified. So they went through them and they qualified and made sure that the right people, the right title, the right companies, etc. So around 400 of them were qualified, right? From that perspective, the fundamental problem here is that they weren't really generating leads. They were generating contacts. What I mean by that is they could have as well went on Zoom Info and bought those emails, and they would have more or less the same effect. They were driving people to download, I believe, some guide, a book or something, using the conversational ads, and people were interested maybe maybe interested in reading that report, or thought they were interested, but eventually didn't read it after a while. So I think that's more like a fundamental mistake that a lot of companies make in this situation, is basically just thinking that they're generating leads and opportunities where they're really not doing much more than just getting their contact information, and knowing that they're potentially interested in the topic of the ebook, which is not a lot. No intent, no buying signal, nothing really.
Uh-huh.
I will give you one insight here.
Yeah.
The reason why companies are playing these playbooks is because these playbooks seem to be scalable. It's really simple, invest more money, get more leads, as they used to call it. But the truth is, if B2B marketing was that easy, all the companies were millionaires already. So that's the problem. Two biggest mistakes, again, that we are seeing quite often is scalability obsession and product obsession. The second problem belongs to the first group of companies that need to learn the lesson the hard way. These are the companies that say we have created the best product in the category, and all we need is just to aware more customers that this product exists. So these are the things that make all campaigns doomed beforehand.
Yeah. Now, I just want to insert a little piece of advertisement here for our show, because we were speaking of LinkedIn ads. And in the previous episode, in episode 20 of the Electric B2B show, we had Mr. Riccardo Ghecchiere. And all we did was talk about LinkedIn ads for B2B. So check out that episode if you want a deeper dive on that. Okay, now, guys, this has been super interesting, but we're not nearly finished. So don't go anywhere, because I'm really anxious and keen to hear what your thoughts and experience is on the last cohort of companies, which are the ones with experienced marketers and an actual team, probably a 5, 6, 10, 15 person marketing team. What's your experience there? What are their biggest challenges, and what is it that they should stick to, that they should follow?
Yeah, Vlad, would you like to go?
No, I just wanted to continue because the example that I gave you was from a company like that. So that had an established, like I mentioned, they nailed their positioning. They're quite mature in that. They were mature in their how they were going after their go-to-market strategy, let's say. But one of the challenges was, of course, changing the MQL model, etc. But the other challenge that is quite often present in companies like that has to do with, I'm not sure if the best word is change management, but really like getting people on board to basically make the transition, right? It's a transition that you have to do. You have more people who are involved, so that's becoming a challenge. And the way that we approached it there, and the way that we usually approach it, is by leading by example, right? So the idea was to define a core team. We'd only selected like 2 marketers. One, I think there was an SDR involved, and 1 account executive who were participating in the pilot campaign. And, we worked with them closely to define the playbook. They translated. That's another thing that's very important in companies like that. Obviously, they had like the whole workflow in Salesforce, and so they had to like also implement that also in their system after, of course, running the pilot campaign, so that other people can pick it up in a more easy way. And so what I'm trying to say there is that first, what's very important is not to do it as a company-wide transition, and okay, we are not going to do this top down, and you educate everybody. And no, I think it's much better approach is to define a core team of people who have the right mindset, believe in it, want to do it, give them the mandate, meaning give them the time, give them the necessary, anything that they need to be able to have the space to run this pilot campaign or pilot campaigns. And then document the process very well. on their own, obviously, market, on their own, how they work with their, how did they work with the SDR team? How did they work with the IE? When did they involve them? How did they select the accounts? How did they reach out to them? What worked, what didn't work? It's also a very specific niche. It was in the construction industry, so it's like a very specific niche as well. So you have to understand, but these people, they are always in the field, so they are not really on LinkedIn. So you better talk to them on a WhatsApp then, or an email than to do it, let's say, via LinkedIn messaging, just to give an example, etc. So after that, so the first point is lead by example, show what kind of results people can expect, give them the playbook, onboard people well, and make sure that you're, doing this step by step and introducing that gradually in the company.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, again, we're circling back to Andrei's first answer on what the similarities between marketing and football are, and we're back to the team, because I bet that in these mature organizations where you actually have a marketing team, probably the biggest marketing challenges when implementing ABM come down to actual managerial questions. And I was expecting marketing issues to pop up, but almost all that you were talking about were management topics, basically, and leadership topics. Andrei, what can you add to that?
Yeah, exactly. So look, I was working for companies where the marketing team size was really big, so above 50 marketers, not 5 or 10 like you mentioned, and where the sales teams were above 100 sales reps in total. So I see two key problems. The first one is marketing and sales alignment. I know this is something that everybody is talking about, but here is the truth. What marketing and sales alignment actually means. And it means that both teams have the same goal or goals. That's the first one and the most important one. And next one is that they have a clear playbook. How do they want to achieve these goals? How they are going to achieve these goals? These are the keys to success. The same like in football, you can't say, okay, so you have a standalone meeting with the defenders and with the forwards. And then you say, okay, to the defenders, guys, look, your goal is not let's say your goal is to keep, the defense safe. We shouldn't give another team a chance to strike, or to get an opportunity to hit the goal. And then you are going to the forwards and you say, okay, guys, you need to pressure the defenders. You need to dribble a lot. You need to shoot a lot. We should win that game. And then you have midfielders. And then people are coming, and doing their stuff. Defenders are just blocking, and passing the valleys to the forwards, and forwards have no idea, where they should find the ball, how they should possession the ball, etc. That's the problem. The same in sales and marketing. So if they are not aligned on these playbooks, and these playbooks include everything that we have covered today: the metrics, the accounts, account qualification criteria, accounts list, warm-up campaigns, activation campaigns, in leading indicators that show that opportunities are progressing. These are the most important things. And if these two things, goals and playbooks, are not created, then nothing won't help.
I am so glad you brought up sales and marketing alignment, and especially common goals and KPIs, because here's the $1 million question, and it's a tough one. Okay, so there's been a lot of talk about both sales and marketing alignment, meaning having on one hand the same objectives, meaning the same KPIs, and on the other hand, on the dark funnel and how so much of what's going on in demand generation can't really be attributed, and that the obsession with attribution is also ruining marketing. So how can you have marketing be responsible for revenue on the one hand, where on the other hand, it's clearly impossible to attribute a lot of what marketing is doing to revenue?
I think there is like a very, very simple solution to that. So if you're running a lot of demand gen and driving basically demand, awareness, and interest into your products, you will you should be seeing increase in pure inbound inquiries. Like look at that as inbound inquiries that turn into sales opportunities. So not inbound inquiries that book meetings and then go cold, but inbound inquiries from the right type of like a good ICP fit, and they're going further and they're going into the opportunity stage, they're being closed eventually, etc. So this is really like the simplest way you can do to attribute leads to leads and opportunities and sales, and eventually revenue to your demand generation, and let's say the dark funnel, and how you're actually influencing the buyers without being able to attribute it.
Yeah, so you just look at the net increase in inbound inquiries, provided that everything else remains more or less equal. So there's no major shift in the market. You're not doing some major advertising campaign or major partner event or whatever that would skew that. So yeah, that makes total sense.
And of course, you might notice things like, better response rate on your outbound campaigns. You may notice things like sales saying, hey, I've been seeing like more of the people that I'm talking to, mentioning some of the maybe some of the content they consumed, etc. So I think another way to attribute, if you like, is simply asking people where they, how they got to know you and with their experience with you, with your brand, basically, in your marketing and sales previously. And also, like I mentioned, also talking to sales and understanding, for example, like, okay, are we seeing better response? Are we seeing more accounts being engaged? Because now we are running whatever warm-up campaigns. So it's not like an exact science, but because the teams are aligned on the same KPIs, it shouldn't matter, because we are both working on growing the revenue there.
Right. Awesome. Andrei, you look like you want to add to that.
I would love to refer to one fundamental thing that we have already discussed, the scalability obsession. Look, if you discuss how the marketing term was coined 50, 60 years ago, it was all about marketing mix, or well-known 4 Ps: product, price, place, and promotion, correct? So the companies initially, they didn't have internet. They didn't have had all this, let's say, targeting opportunities. They couldn't purchase the contacts from Zoom Info, upload to LinkedIn, and target all the companies, or run Google Ads, etc. So they were doing marketing was like, this marketing mix was all about creating demand with PR, with inbound, with events for the end users, B2C, B2B doesn't matter. It was all about this human communication. It was all about the activation playbooks. Also, there was a direct response of what we used to call ABM today, like let's say this personalized outreach, correct? And that was just one unified program. And nowadays, we have the problem because companies tend to think, okay, I just need to invest. I want to find the scalable channel. I want to put more money into LinkedIn, Google, etc., and scale it and see, my revenue is just pumping up. That's the fundamental problem. So I don't understand why well, I understand why, because I'm a marketer, but that's so crazy to see that marketers try to create unique solution. They pick up just a part of marketing and present it as an ultimate solution or a silver bullet, which is absolutely not true. That's why in the early beginning of our conversation, I told you that ABM is not a silver bullet. It's just a standard part of marketing operations. And now let's discuss the second problem. So because of that scalability obsession, companies want to see how each cent or dollar that they're investing is making more money, correct? But the truth is that marketing should be measured by return on marketing investments, or so-called ROMI. Correct? So you invest, you have your marketing budget, and you invest into different parts of marketing, and you don't measure the marketing efficiency by inbound opportunities, leads, sales cycle lengths, etc. But you just take a look at two things. If your sales cycle is not that long, you take a look at revenue. If your sales cycle is really long, then you look at sales pipeline velocity, which means the revenue trajectory that is correlated with your sales cycle length. And that's the way how the marketing should be measured. And if company has this mindset, you'll never have a question, should company engage into dark social? Should company, invest more in demand generation? Should company invest more in PR? Because that's marketing. That's all is marketing. And ABM is just part of it.
Oh my goodness, that was gold. That was gold. You know why? Because, this obsession with both scalability and the silver bullet thing, I think it's a very human thing if you think about it. So we humans, or especially marketers, we're constantly looking for breakthroughs because, we're all looking for that like big hero campaign or move or whatever strategy that will just take the company to the next level. So whenever we stumble on something that looks promising, we tend to think or be tricked into hoping that it's one thing that if you just snatch onto what you have existing in going on in marketing, that it will just take you and propel you to the next level. And I think that mindset is wrong, because what you said is I was going to ask you a follow-up question about this, by the way, but now I'm not. I think what marketers need to understand is that this is a complex game that requires like holistic thinking, because marketing is getting so nuanced and so complicated that on the one hand, you need the experts, you need the T-shaped experts that understand real deeply like one part of marketing, like, I don't know, paid social or demand generation, or there are probably even like sub niches and subcategories within each of these now. But you also need to be able to understand the entire machine, like be the engineer or the architect that understands the whole vehicle and how the parts work together and how they interact. And just like, if you take the analogy of a car, like, you can add some like turbo boost to the engine that'll improve the performance on the one hand, but there's going to be a drawback somewhere else in the system probably. And, you just need to understand the whole vehicle.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. That's why I thought in the beginning, you need to have a big picture. Everybody in your team should see a big picture, how the campaign is going to be executed, let's say the pilot campaign, how it's going to be scaled, not scaled in terms of, investing more money in LinkedIn ads or in some fancy software, but how you're going to involve more SDRs, how are you going to, launch the same campaigns in different regions. So these are the most, let's say, or to other verticals, whatever. So these are the most common ways to scale it. And that's why everybody should understand it. And if company doesn't have this big picture, if there is a lack of it, then there would be a problem, because the same, just to give you a precise example, the other day I did a poll on LinkedIn and asked what's the most creative outreach you have ever seen or have ever done. And people were sharing a bunch of examples. And some guy, I remember, he said, I sent a proposal to, like, let's say a list of strategic accounts. And as a gift, I put one shoe. And I told, if you'll have a meeting with me, then I print you the second shoe. So you'll get a pair. And I asked, like, what was your response rate? 0. And the reason why, because people, when they listen to ABM webinars or direct mail outreach, they see exactly like you said. They say, wow, this is a new breakthrough. So what I need to do is just to buy some creative, gift and send this as a parcel, as a physical gift, and then call them. But that's just a very tiny part of entire ABM campaign. The most important thing is account research, account validation, personalization, and another story.
Knowing your customer.
Yeah, another story. Well, again, that was the fundamental. Another one, the truth is, if accounts are aware of you, the chances of that you'll have success with your campaigns are high, which means that you should be doing demand generation. you see how all things are intertwined. That's why I say, don't make silver bullets out of specific marketing programs, but start doing marketing.
Awesome. That's gold. Wow. Anything you guys want to add, or I should have asked you, or that you want to talk about next time?
Nothing specific from my side. So if you have something to wrap it up, we are happy to share with you.
Okay, Andrei and Vlad, this was a deep session. I certainly learned a lot, and I so appreciate that you both took time out of your busy schedules to make it to this conversation. This is special because we usually have like one-on-one conversations, but the fact that the two of you could make it makes it 4 times better because it's exponential, you know. So again, thank you so much, and you gave us a lot of insight. And I loved how we divided things up today. That, you know, we talked about less mature, kind of mature, and then very mature marketing organizations and their challenges and all that goes with that. So again, thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, first of all, for having us. And I suggest, just to wrap it up, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So I suggest you to summarize what were the key insights, what you have learned, and what you believe the core insights your listeners should care about. Oh,
awesome. That was kind of below the belt because we talked about so much, but here's the most fundamental thing I took from you. Okay. Initially, when you are an immature marketing organization, it's super important to get the mindset right. And in the mindset, meaning that what to expect from marketing, that ABM is not a silver bullet and nothing is a silver bullet. And you either have to learn it the easy way or the hard way. You said you either learn it the hard way or you've already learned it the hard way. I'm hoping that you can actually learn it the easy way and not have to like take punches and make big mistakes. You know, and this includes having the right expectations, so not wanting to see sales results in 3 months from ABM or any B2B marketing program for that matter. So it starts here, and then as your marketing organization matures, then what you want to do is really like nail the specifics. You definitely want to have the fundamentals right, because nothing happens without the fundamentals, which is product market fit, knowing your ICP, and a couple of the other things. And when you're moving into maturity and you have a larger marketing team, much of marketing success is gonna be a question of managerial excellence. So on the one hand, how you can align the teams, and alignment really depends on having the same goals. And what was the other thing? You had goals and
playbook.
And the playbook. Yeah, so you've got to have the common playbook and the common goals. And on the other hand, just getting people to talk to each other, getting sales and marketing on the same page, setting up a core team to experiment with the new strategies, and then expanding that and getting everybody on board.
Awesome summary. Thank you so much for having us. I really enjoyed this discussion. It was very chill, and I think really good questions. I love what you're doing on the show. Keep up the good work.
Thanks. And I'm looking forward to your episodes that are coming out soon.
All right.
Kudos for a fantastic episode.
Thanks. And thanks for doing the Trenches community, by the way. That's we wanted to like shout out to the Trenches community, how that's an awesome place to exchange ideas and grow and hopefully get together physically and drink beer in our actual physical realities. Okay. So again, thank you so much. And I shall stop the recording. And I've stopped the recording.